Good morning, everybody. It is definitely a privilege to be here with all of you and to see so many of you here who are into the most important topics that we have here today. And I want to thank our speakers. Thank you, Jos Blériot. Thank you, Stiente van Veldhoven, Annika Preski and Eva Heiskanen for really interesting and eye-opening talks around the circular future. It is a pleasure, really a pleasure to have such a great group of influential speakers here today. Many of the speakers called for a systemic transition. Indeed, we cannot rely barely on recycling and CO2 emission reductions. If we do not change the patterns and means of natural resource use, we risk facing biodiversity loss, climate change, and raw material shortages. However, as the speakers pointed out, there are several inspiring examples around us. Organizations can become real leaders and show us the way. If the leaders build trust for change, we have good chances of getting the people on board. We should aim for a wider green transition, and not just the transition away from fossil fuels. It is not enough as such. We need to rebuild the economy into one that is no longer based on the overconsumption of natural resources. And this is important for two reasons. First, availability of natural resources has security implications, the same way as availability of energy has, and this is something we have heard also today about. If critical sectors of the society rely on long supply chains and authoritarian actors, we are vulnerable to international crisis. Second, we have to adjust our actions into planetary limits. Use of raw materials has a direct impact on biodiversity. At the same time, we have to tackle climate change. These two goals have to accommodate each other. And it is clear that we need this huge green transition right now. But we must also pay attention to how we implement it. This transition can be done in a way that triggers a new race for natural resources, or it can be done well through sustainable and smart regulation and policy instruments. It is clear that investments in windmills, electric cars, and hydrogen solutions require all the time more materials. Therefore, businesses and societies have to adopt circular thinking to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss, but also to create new jobs and well-being. In Finland, we have set ambitious targets. We have decided to become carbon neutral by 2035. Actually, the world's first welfare state that would become carbon neutral. Last year, the government also made a decision, and I would say maybe a historical decision, to set a cap to curb the overconsumption of natural resources by 35. These decisions would not have been possible without active dialogue with researchers. And I think I also have a background in research and university, but I really think that involving the scientific community into political decision-making is a key element in achieving a truly sustainable society. To move forward and really walk the talk, we in Finland are just in the beginning of a scenario process with the key businesses and cities. In this so-called circular economy Green Deal process, our over 80 key players are working together with the ministries. The key players include almost all provinces, the biggest cities, business and trade associations, the biggest forestry companies, and key actors from the construction sector. Ministries, businesses and cities together with the researchers create pathways to the future and try to identify the most effective measures to change the trend, advance circular and carbon neutral economy, and to create new business opportunities. And this green transition creates new jobs and hopefully attracts more and more investments all the time. And I have met in my ministerial post several businesses and industry associations whose key message has been the need to go on with proactive climate and environmental policy. The most important thing for businesses is to have steady prospects for the future. And it was mentioned here before that it is not about party politics, not just one party. I want to say this is not, I come from the Green Party, but I always say that these issues, we cannot solve them by ourselves. In this kind of a democracy, we need everybody on board, definitely. And what businesses tell us is that if we now go into elections and will change the government, and if all this stops, if we stop making this green transition, making climate policies, biodiversity policies, this is a bad message for businesses too. This is the message I get. For example, our construction sector, as well as chemical and energy industries, they have actually been enthusiastic with their own roadmaps and initiatives, just to mention few. Stakeholders and we in the public sector have taken many steps during the last years. Nevertheless, many big steps are still missing, as we all know. It is still cheaper to use natural resources than to replace them with recycled raw materials, services, or new solutions. One of the big questions for the future is a sustainable development tax reform and smart incentives to boost carbon neutral circular economy. And as I mentioned, the good work that is already done and the good collaboration with so many stakeholders, this is something that we really need to continue. And we should definitely make a holistic big change, and this, I think, is our common big goal from now on. Thank you.